Alrighty. So here we are again, another strange show. Coming very late. And if you don't know who I am, then you might as well ask your mother. It's your boy Hugo Strange here with Emily Sophia once again. Yeah. I'm not gonna do any shameless plugs now, so Em, you can just tell the people where they can find you.
Sure, absolutely. Well, they call me on the YouTube parts, I'm EmmightySofia, EM, the word mighty, and Sophia. So that's kind of my main hub of activity. You can find me doing all kinds of reviews and some original music. I'm starting up The Walking Dead next weekend as well. So just so you guys know, even though Dexter and Breaking Bad have been laid to rest, I'll still be here. And you can tweet me at Emily Sophia Smith. And then my Facebook is facebook.com/Emily Sophia Band. So that's kind of that business. But yeah.
And don't forget I am the cruel one at Tumblr.
Indeed. Don't forget Tumblr because I haven't been on there in forever, but it's a happy place for me. So join me in my happy place whenever I do get to be there.
Well, you'll be back once Hannibal kicks off, so
Yeah, that's for sure. I finally bought the first season DVD set. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing they've got the gag reel and the uncut episodes. So I'm excited to check those out soon.
oh, uncut? Wow.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. They have the episode that they pulled one of them from the air
Oh
due to
yeah.
due to there was like violence and children, and that was around the time of like the Boston Marathon bombing. So
I see.
I haven't actually seen that full episode yet, so I'll see that. And yeah, I'm excited for the second season though.
Oh, of course. Of course.
It's gonna be grisly, but yeah. And I will tell you real fast, quick tangent, that I had a dream last night that Mads Mikkelsen, who plays Hannibal, I dreamed that he got assassinated. And so they canceled the second season of Hannibal. And I was crying so hard that I woke up depressed. I just, I don't know why I dreamed this, but I did. It was
That's rough.
upset. That it was rough. Yeah, but he's still among us as far as I know. So,
Indeed.
yes. I needed to tell someone that because it just troubled me so much because he's a great actor and I want more Hannibal because
I think we all do, especially after the final season of Dexter. Now,
yes.
we would all like to say that the final season of Dexter was probably somewhere around season 4 at the end when the greatest cliffhanger ever was the dead Rita, and we'd
Hmm.
like to say that's where the season ended. And I know you'll agree with me here that season 5 was good, but I know
Yeah.
a lot of people out there won't. So we have to deal with the reality that there were subsequent seasons after 4.
Hmm.
And with those subsequent seasons, a decline in quality, ending with probably one of the most hated finales in a long time. And I say hated, and a lot of people will say, oh no, it was polarizing. Well, there are polarizing finales where people are kind of on the fence, like The Sopranos, but
Right.
I've been searching and searching and searching, and no one seems to be on the fence about the Dexter finale. It's almost universally hated. So we're here today to talk about the final season of Dexter, along with some Breaking Bad stuff, just to throw in there. So, before we started this podcast, Em told me that she had something uh, rather insightful to share. So I'm gonna yield the floor to her. And Em, whenever you're ready.
Yeah. So I caught this via Facebook, actually. I've liked a couple of different Dexter fan pages that kind of, they've continued to produce stories in the aftermath of the finale. So I saw this just quick little snippet of a story, and I hope that I'll be able to find some more context for it soon. But it was a little mini statement made by the Dexter producer John Goldwyn, and the title of this little story, this little blurb, is "Showtime wouldn't let us kill Dexter." Okay. So then the quote is Dexter producer John Goldwyn was asked about the series finale at the NYFF premiere of The Secret Life of Walter Mitty this weekend on how the writers decided on their ending. And he says, "They won't let us kill him. Showtime was very clear about that. When we told them the arc for the last season, they just said, just to be clear, he's going to live." There were a lot of endings discussed because it was a very interesting problem to solve, to bring it all to a close. People have a relationship with Dexter, even if it doesn't have the size and the ferocity of the fan base for Breaking Bad, but it has a very loyal core following. So the meat of the issue being that I believe that there were some major politics behind the way that Dexter ended, whereas with Breaking Bad, from what I can tell, there was a desire on the part of the network to, like, let Vince Gilligan do his thing. I don't know much about that, but I've been hearing more and more about kind of, Showtime's relationship with the writers and the way that they coordinated over how to end things. And I think there's a very strong desire on the part of Showtime to keep Dexter alive for the sake of potential ongoing profits. That's kind of what I'm seeing in this, assuming that this statement is true and was lifted, factually. Again, I'd like to hear more about the context of it, but I've seen this in several different places now. So I would like to ask you, what you think. I mean, in light of how you feel about the finale in general, based on this interesting new revelation.
Well, I definitely agree with it. I wouldn't put it past executive producers of anything to say, okay, we're not going to do this. And I know a lot of people are going to hate me for this, but one of the main examples that I'm going to keep coming back to is Lost. A lot of people will assume, like, oh, the writers didn't know what they were doing. And it's like, no, Damon and Carlton straight up said that the producers of the show didn't really want Lost to end. And this was around the third season where,
Mm-hmm.
the reason why the third season dragged so much is because the Lost writers had intended Lost to end somewhere around the fourth season.
Right.
But the producers kept wanting, Lost was a big thing. It was making money. So the producers were like, no, you need to stretch this out. And Damon and Carlton were like, well, it came to a point where it's like, well, what else can we do now?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of thing to help stretch the story out. So it's not like they've forsaken anything. It's just that they had to make it longer than it should have been, which I still think Lost ended good. So with Damon and Carlton, uh, and of course, looking at it from an executive producer standpoint, where if a show is making you money, why kill it? So that makes perfect sense that Showtime wouldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
However, I'm okay. I would be fine with them not killing Dexter. In fact, there
Yeah.
is a brilliant YouTube video from a guy who almost in the style of Harry Plinkett kind of does this Dexter season 8 rewrite where it's actually quite good.
Hmm.
And it ends with Dexter being in Argentina minus Hannah because she's not a thing in that rewrite.
Oh,
Um, yeah. So it ends with Dexter in Argentina hunting down, like escaped Nazi war criminals. And I would be fine with something like that.
yeah. Right. I mean, it's like I personally had anticipated or even in kind of sick way hoped that Dexter would be caught or wind up dead. Kind of
Hmm.
similarly to what I had hoped for Breaking Bad as well with Walter White, except I have very different feelings about the two different, anti-hero protagonist people because,
Anyone
you
who
know,
watched her video would know.
yeah, oh God. I got over 20,000 views on that little documentary of my emotions. Oh, I was just so wrecked, and it had, in my reaction to the finale had nothing to even do with Dexter. It was all about Deborah for me because I mean, that character has just had me wrapped around her finger for, the past forever. I have this really deep tie to Deborah as a character, and I see a lot of myself in her. So the way that things ended with her was really painful for me. And I figured out very early on in the episode, just via the way that they were kind of constructing the scenes with Deborah, I knew exactly what they were going to do to her. And so I was already crying by, like, I started watching it at 9 Pacific Standard Time, and I was crying by 9:20. I saw the clock because I was like trying to look away from the screen and like just, but I couldn't, and I knew exactly where it was going, and just it hit me like a freight train. But that it hurt bad for me. I'll tell you, the Breaking Bad finale hurt good, but Dexter's finale hurt bad because of, for me, Deborah was the character least deserving of that fate. And yet, it's all kind of about, the fallout of Dexter's actions and him thinking that he can have this idyllic life despite what he's done. And arguably it's like you could argue that Deborah died as a result of his actions, with his negligence in killing people who he just should have freaking dealt with. But I don't want to go too much further. If you have any like questions or way you want to guide the discussion, I don't want to go too far.
No, I definitely wanted to say that I was crying by the end of Dexter too, just for very different reasons.
Okay.
For the finale of Dexter, I was expecting something, to feel like a final season, to feel like things were coming to a close, and the final season of Dexter did feel that way, but for all of the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
The reason,
I feel
go
very
ahead.
similarly. Yeah, no, I was just saying I totally agree. Go ahead. I'm curious now.
Oh no, I'm saying the reasons being is because a lot of it was okay. The first half of the season was, well, quarter, I should say. The first quarter of the season was okay, with Dexter kind of dealing with Deborah and, them patching up their relationship, and then Evelyn Vogel comes in and,
Yeah.
this is the mother of the code, and it's like,
Mhm.
whoa, that's a very interesting place to go for the final season. Maybe, I was thinking that perhaps Dexter would get caught or some kind of way, and then you would have this psychopath whisperer being able to speak on his behalf, so Dexter doesn't end up facing execution, but probably, goes
Uh-huh.
to a mental institution or something, you
Yeah.
know. So there was this interesting kind of pseudo familial thing being built there,
Mhm.
and then Hannah shows up.
And then Hannah.
And then the entire plot just kind of pulled into this screeching halt. Like, I could hear, like, tires just screeching in my head, and I'm like, what the hell is that? And then she just shows up out of nowhere, and after that, it just became the biggest insult to Dexter viewers ever. And I'm not saying that because I have any ill will towards Yvonne Strahovski. Um,
Oh,
you know,
amen to that.
I haven't seen her in Chuck. I haven't watched Chuck. Nothing against it. It's just I have a long-standing issue with NBC. Despite the fact that Hannibal is on it, I
Mhm.
still have issues with NBC. But
Yep.
this has nothing to do with Yvonne Strahovski. Season 7, I just didn't like her. I felt she was out of place. This
Mhm.
season, though, this season confirmed all of my worst fears about her character being introduced. It is shameless, pointless, useless character worship to the highest order. And this was made clear to me when um yeah, when Harrison's like, I like Hannah, I wish she could be my mom.
Oh my
And
God. They kept harping on that so unnecessarily. Like if Harrison should be saying that anyone should be his mom, it's Jamie.
of
She
course.
freaking has raised the kid.
Of
It's like
course.
just I think that they're trying, I mean, you could look at it from the perspective of like some deep-seated unconscious memory of Rita, seeing like this blonde woman kind of figure and he sort of like conflates his birth mother with this other woman. It's possible that like you could kind of look at it from that way. But the way
Perhaps.
they used, to me, it felt like they used Harrison as a device to make us
Exactly.
like and accept Hannah McKay.
Exactly. I
Where
right. Go ahead.
yeah, no, it's just they that was absolutely unnecessary. They were trying to just go to every possible place that they could to make us be like, oh, see, oh, look, see, and just kind of, I would rather have had her come back like with a vengeance, stomping down,
Yes.
like
Yes.
going like Godzilla McKay, just ravaging everything in Dexter's life. I would rather see her come as a reckoning force than like there's just no I don't have words. I
Yeah.
just I don't have words for it because I
Yeah.
just we just sort of got strapped down and you know
Yeah.
got
And it
got
was at that point
treatment.
where the series kind of lost its focus for me.
Yes.
And I
Mm-hmm.
think for a lot of people who are watching the series, and I don't want to turn this into like a Dexter bash, but
Right.
just getting back to the Hannah mommy thing, that scene was almost foreshadowing the finale, because in the finale Hannah does become
Yep.
Harrison's mom, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like in so much, in a so ham-fisted way, to kind of build to that finale where, oh yeah, she's Harrison's mom now.
Mm-hmm.
But the getting there was, there was no tension. There was
Yeah.
this was a tensionless season for me. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
feel any tension that was created was a false tension. For
Right.
example, um the scene where Dexter has Oliver Saxon strapped down,
Yeah.
and he's like, I don't need to kill you, and I'm not gonna kill you. Right then and there, immediately, in your mind, he's gonna escape.
Oh yeah.
So you can just like sit back and just not be surprised of anything, because it's like, well, this guy's gonna escape. I know I know this is gonna
Yep.
happen. This wasn't anything like season 4, where Frank Lundy and Deborah are chilling. Next thing you know, he gets a gunshot in the gut and he
Oh yeah.
dies. That was rough. This isn't anything like in season 5, where Lumen's just on the phone. It's Jordan Chase, and he may not know it's Lumen. He probably doesn't know it's Lumen, and then he says, "Take care, Lumen," and then it's like,
Oh
"Oh
yeah.
snap, he knows." You
Mm-hmm.
know, it isn't like that. This whole season,
No.
there was no, oh crap moment. I didn't have that, because a lot of it was just blatant stupidity and lazy writing and plot contrivances. And I'm not the kind of person who will complain about that. If I'm entertained, then I'm entertained. I can deal with that. Breaking Bad has quite a few plot contrivances, quite a few.
Yeah.
But the way it's handled, the way it's dealt with, the way it's done,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't take away from the writing of it. It's not like a writer is throwing his hands in the air and saying, "Well, I'll just do this." No, it's literally like, okay, this crap happens. Now we deal with that. And the characters even look around and realize, holy crap, we just got out of that. We're really lucky we
Yeah.
survived that. It's not like, how did this happen? This guy
Yeah.
totally escaped. What?
Yeah, it's a with Breaking Bad, it's a well-oiled machine, and there hasn't been a single season lacking in
Exactly.
tension and lacking in me like tearing the flesh off of my face as everything unfolds. That was me the entire final half of season 5. I was thinking about doing like like kind of reaction video. Like some of my viewers have asked me to like film myself watching episodes, but I get so wrapped up in it that I don't even think of setting anything up to do that. But it's pretty entertaining to watch me. My family can attest to that, especially with Breaking Bad.
I would completely vouch for that after seeing your almost 20-minute meltdown over Dexter.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah. I will tell you though, I did not this may come as a shock, but I did not cry once during the Breaking Bad finale. I was
I
I was
Yeah,
like laughing. I was by the end, I was in just pure like ecstatic giggles
I think everybody was,
because it was
especially.
just like and the baby blue and just I know this is digressing, but I just
No,
need
no,
to
no.
say that like I had such a different response, and the way the writers brought everything to a close elicited a very different response. Um,
Indeed, indeed.
it felt that there was justice, and it was a weirdly satisfying end to what had been a pretty incredible run, and just
Yes,
it all felt good. It all felt good.
yes. Well, Breaking Bad started with the mist. Well, not the entire series. Let's talk about season 5A and season 5B.
Right.
Technically season 6, but it's season 5B. Whatever.
Yeah. Right.
I like the fact that they went to basics. The first season was only 8 episodes, and the final season was only 8 episodes, and then 8 more, so 16, but eight, eight.
Yeah.
So I like that they did that. But Breaking Bad had so many nods to moments in the series that hardcore fans would notice with the way Walter White fell down at the end of Ozymandias,
Mhm.
and with the way Gus fell down when he watched his friend get a gunshot in the head, and the way
Yeah.
the cartel held him down. To oh crap, the Walter White just laying down and the camera slowly pulling up from him
Uh-huh.
also mirrored the scene in I think it was Buried, maybe.
Crawl Space? Was
Crawl
it the
Space. Thank you. Crawl Space.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's one of my favorite scenes in the series. That's one of my
Yes.
favorite ones because
It
it's
it was
just
so true.
it's so manic. You just feel like
Yes.
you are, descending into the insanity with Walter. And then to see him, what Breaking Bad did stunningly was just the parallels from start to finish. It was I like bookending in a way. I'm that it like what I mean by that is that it looks back to everything from the days before. Dexter felt like a totally different show by the
Yes.
very end, whereas Breaking Bad felt like it was still cut from the same cloth. And seeing the camera zoom out from Walter as he's kind of like laying there and smiling in the arms of death, and it's like and he's at peace,
Yes.
in a
Yes.
strange way. Whereas, like, I don't know, and even like the final glance that he exchanges with Jesse, the way they look at each other. There's even been parallels drawn between the very first time that Walter and Jesse look at each other, like when Walter approaches Jesse about, striking a deal. Like there's sort of this look of like, can we make this work? And then at the very end, when they look at each other and they kind of know Walter's not going to be leaving, he's not going to be leaving there, and Jesse knows that it's time to go restart his life, and they just kind of look at each other like, yeah, that was a thing. Then let's go. There's just the parallels strengthened the end and made it very satisfying because it harkened back to the early days while bringing the things that started in the very beginning, bringing those things to resolve.
Exactly. And for a final episode, for a final season, this wasn't exactly difficult. And I'm a writer myself, so I've written a lot of endings, a lot of things, and any writer could probably see this ending coming. And I don't want to shortchange Vince Gilligan at all, because this is the ending that needed to happen for this show. And
Yes.
I like the fact that he realizes that, and this is the ending. It wasn't anything left field. It was very straightforward. It wasn't, trying to be artistic. It was, this is the end. This is what happens, and the story's over. There
Yep.
is no, tricks. There's a time to be artistic, and there's a time to wrap things up. And this was really
Right.
that ending that wrapped things up and just let us know that this is it. This is how the story's going to end. And it ended very typical, where a lot of people speculated either Walt's going to get away or he's going to have to die. And with the way the final season is gone, everybody speculated that, he probably gets away for a while, which I was
Mhm.
right about him using the Vanisher guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I mean anybody could have seen that, but
Right.
just, and even then that was hinted in season 4.
Uh-huh.
So all of these things just kind of came together, played a role, and that was the end where
Yep.
these things happened. In terms of Dexter, when you said it felt like a completely different show, and it did.
Yeah.
And one of the other kind of insulting things that I found in the final season of Dexter is when Dexter's dressing up a room, setting up a kill room, and Ghost Harry mentions, the choir director. Yeah, you haven't been here in a long time. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, first of all, if Ghost Harry hadn't have said that, no one would have known.
Right. Because it felt so wildly different. I didn't know until he said it.
Exactly. He didn't. The thing is, Dexter always sets up kill rooms in a room that's significant to his victim, you
Yeah.
know? And so when he was setting up a kill room for Saxon in the room of the choir director, I'm like, why would Dexter go there? That makes no sense whatsoever. That
Right.
that
This,
doesn't track with the way Dexter does things. So
yeah.
that was something that I found just a little weird for the final
Right.
season of Dexter.
And they
And
tried in the very final episode, like, um, it seemed like they sort of attempted to put in like some little parallels, or well, not really even parallels. It's more like Easter eggs. They just kind of like drop them in, but then at the same time, it's like they had to, actually say that this was the room where the choir director was killed. Again, that's really not a parallel. It's just kind of like a coincidence almost.
yeah,
And then, I mean, especially what with Dexter being so sloppy in the last, half of the season, it's like he
yes,
doesn't seem to be calculating much more than, getting his flight tickets,
yes,
um, that's kind of what he's putting his intellect to work at is, anyways. And there was like a little scene where like for the briefest second, and I found this so bizarre, there was kind of like this medium close up on the back of like an ice truck, and everyone's sort of like,
yes,
it's like,
yes,
oh, the ice truck killer, but it's like, why? Because Brian, it wasn't even mentioned, like,
yes,
and so it was like, oh, there's that. Oh, okay, I wanted to appreciate it more, but I couldn't really because it felt like they were sort of nodding to a different series. They're
yes.
trying to like, oh, look at that thing, not like this. I don't know. It felt unnatural.
Yeah,
It
it
was
wasn't.
like hodgepodge.
Yeah, it wasn't mirroring any significant moment in the series. It was just kind of
Right.
saying, "Oh, look, it's an ice truck. You guys remember the ice truck killer? Huh? Huh? Huh?"
Yeah.
Wink, wink, and a nudge, nudge kind of thing.
Yep.
Where you look at the scene with Walter White in the car wash, and Lydia shows up. That mirrors the scene between Walter White and Gus at Los Pollos Hermanos, where
Oh
they're interacting, and Gus is just doing the polite smiley thing, and he's like, "Can I get you more Coke, sir?" And Walt's like, "Yeah, have an A1 day." And
yeah.
it's this complete these subtle things that you notice from
Yep.
previous seasons of how the characters interact with each other, how the tides have changed between
Hmm.
the characters.
Right.
Uh, I don't want to bash Dexter, so we'll jump off that and maybe get back on
Sure.
later on. But I want to touch on Breaking Bad some more and just say that every season of Breaking Bad had a main villain to an extent. Where the first season we had Crazy Eight and what's
Yeah.
his name, and they weren't exactly villains, but they posed a problem for
Yeah.
the heroes. The second season was undeniably Tuco. Um,
Yes.
and Tuco again didn't last very long, but he posed a problem, and that's when
Yeah.
Walter White came up with the quote unquote fugue state and
Oh,
all this other
yes.
nonsense.
Uh-huh.
And then Gus came into the picture
Mm-hmm.
around the third season. Fourth season, it was still Gus.
Yep.
And now, season 5, we have Todd as the main villain, who I would say the main villain was undeniably Todd.
Right, because you could say that in some sense, like, well, Hank becomes a sort of antagonistic figure to Walt, but not in the same sense, because Walt would do anything to protect Hank. So
Exactly.
it's this sort of, it's a really complex relationship because Walter's trying to, fight to survive, but at the same time, he would rather, go off in cuffs than have anything happen to the family that this whole thing was to provide for them.
Exactly. And if you remember at the beginning of season 5B, I can't remember the episode name for the life of me. This is going to eat me up inside, whatever. But for the beginning of season 5B, Hank
Uh-huh.
tells him, go get Skylar and the kids, bring them here, we'll talk. He was willing to make a deal there. That was
Yeah,
almost a moment of budge, and Walt's like, that's not going to happen.
right.
So that Walter has his pride. He has his moments of like,
Mhm.
no, that's I'm not gonna make a deal with you. You're just gonna have to deal with it. And he makes that confession tape brilliant, by the way.
Oh my God, that was, whoo-hoo,
That was one of the
that was a
most chilling
moment.
moments in television, right there.
It was so just brilliantly horrific.
Yeah,
I wanted to scream. It was just my brother and I were sitting there watching, and we were just like, we look at the screen, look back at each other. We were kind of doing the thing that like Hank and Marie were doing, like, except we were like dying of laughter because it was just like, this is so terribly just perfect.
yeah. It is the genius Walter White move, and it's
Just like he does in the end with oh, what's their names, hoity toity rich, the blah, blah, blah.
the
What are their
Aryan
names?
Brotherhood.
What's that?
The Aryan Brotherhood, you mean?
Oh no, it was with the gray matter people,
Ah, Elliot and yeah, Gretchen, yes.
Elliot and Gretchen, just like with the lasers
That
going to
was
the
great. That was
I died. It just, and I love that what Breaking Bad also did awesomely was that they maintained a sense of humor. Even
yeah,
in the end game, that which was so tense and everyone had all these feelings of despair that it's ending, but they kept us laughing,
yes.
laughing in the face of danger and imminent tragedy. And Dexter, I feel like it could have done the same thing.
It tried to with
It
the episode
tried,
Are You There Yet?
yeah.
Yeah, if you listen to the Dexter wrap up podcast, the writer Wendy West constantly said that she wanted it to feel to have a sort of sitcom vibe to it.
Yeah,
Where there's one
you could
problem
tell.
and another problem and another problem and another problem. And she succeeded at that, but
Yeah.
at the same time, it didn't work well for what the final season needed to be.
Yeah, it didn't fit. It honestly pissed me off because of the and it wasn't just the fact that Hannah McKay was involved. I don't know what it was, but it was just too hammy. I don't know. And then the whole like serial killer convention dinner, you got
Yeah,
Dexter, Hannah, and the weird sort of cannibalistic undertones with Bogle and there was all this weirdness, but it didn't really go anywhere. It was just like, oh,
yes,
this is weird. And it felt more awkward and estranging than it did like inviting, because we see the Dexter humor of seasons past where he's just kind of being snarky about everything. And, it's like he's is in his journey to humanity, it's a little bit harder for him to maintain that same sense of charisma that the classic sociopath would use, you know.
Hmm.
Um, and so it makes sense that like things are kind of derailing, and that there's the nature of things is changing. But it's still, that wasn't the kind of humor that really, it just didn't feel right to me.
Yes, indeed,
Yeah.
indeed. And Breaking Bad needed to inject some kind of humor in the final
Right.
season, because after an episode like Ozymandias and Granite State, especially the moments dealing with Jesse, which was unbelievably heartbreaking, and
Yeah.
Walt Jr. on the phone with Walter telling him that he should just crawl in a hole and die. Definitely just some of the just the most depressing stuff, and just Walter sitting there with his
Yeah.
chemotherapy, just looking emaciated and pathetic. And
Yeah.
it's like, how far has this man fallen?
Mhm.
So seeing Skinny Pete and Badger in the final season, I mean, in the final episode, was a very welcomed change
Oh yes. And I
for
love.
how dark it's gotten up until this
Uh-huh.
point.
Yes. I love that Skinny Pete was like, this is like morally ambiguous. And
Yeah.
that is the show, my friend. Well, at the same time, there really is a strong moral sense with Breaking Bad in the way that the consequences unfold. But I still like that a lot. It
It
was good.
definitely makes for great drama,
Yeah,
where we're seeing kind of a rise, if you will, of anti-heroes kind of being the leads of shows.
yeah,
Back in the day, it was the cop who plays by his own rules. Now it's sort of this snarky badass who just goes around, killing whatever, but they have some sort of code, and it's like we can vibe with that because it's more in tune with our reality, where sometimes things aren't black and white. But in
yeah.
Walter White's case, let's not split hairs here. The man's deplorable. He is a meth dealer.
Oh yes.
He is responsible for several murders.
Mhm.
So but I would argue, just getting back on the points of villains here,
Yeah,
I would argue that Todd was probably the most dangerous villain in Breaking Bad.
yeah. He
And
was 100% pure psychopath, and I
yes,
believe that.
but the reason I would say that is because Todd is not smart.
Mm-mm.
He's very practical, and that's what makes him so dangerous. He's not
Right.
like Gus, where Walter White and Gus kind of had a meeting of the minds there. He's not like Tuco, where he's kind of insane.
Yeah.
Um, Todd knows what he's doing, takes pride in his work, but at the same time, he's not a technical thinker. Like when the
No.
kid showed up at the train, he didn't think to lie to the kid and say, "Oh, hey, we're." No, he pulls out a gun and shoots him. Why? Because it's practical. That's the thing you do.
Hmm.
And during the Jesse confession tape, when Jesse mentions the Drew Sharp murder, you can see kind of this half smile on Todd's face, and it's anybody else who would have done that role would have overacted it.
Yeah.
But Jesse Plemons, or Jess Plemons, however he pronounces his name,
Yeah.
just did it so subtle to the point where you can see this guy like, this guy's kind of an idiot, but he's crazy,
Yeah.
and you don't want to mess with him. Like
Uh-huh.
Jack, he's a guy who's in control, and this is gonna sound bad because I'm black and he's a Nazi, but I like Jack. I liked Jack. He
Yeah.
wasn't he wasn't he wasn't boisterous. He wasn't, he was very like businessman like, where he's like,
Yeah.
even after they kill Hank, he's like, well, you find Jesse, we'll kill him. We'll still do that for you. And he's like,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll leave you a barrel, because
Uh,
my nephew respects you. So it's like, they're not these super evil guys, but the fact
right.
is that that's what makes them so dangerous, is that they're not these I'll kill your infant daughter type Gus people. They're not, Tuco who will hold a gun to your head and kidnap you in the middle of the night. They're these guys who are just practical. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what made them so dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think and what was so striking to me was the way that Todd reacted after everyone got killed. He looked genuinely confused.
Yes.
If he had no idea that Walter was behind this and he was scared that Walter was gonna get killed.
Yes.
And he was like, he said something like, "Oh, Mr. White," and then Jesse just like went ham, and I was just so I knew that he was going to die
Of
and die brutally
of
because he
course.
had to.
Of
Um,
course. That was one of the most gratifying moments in television.
it truly was because I think Jesse's reaction embodied, everything that we had been hoping for after killing, from the kid to freaking Andrea and just the
Yeah.
whole, oh yeah, that was cathartic beyond belief. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And the weird thing about this is, in later episodes, a lot of people turned on Hank. A lot of
Uh-huh.
people were spouting that, oh, forget Hank. I don't like Hank anymore. Blah blah blah. I never liked Hank. He's a jerk.
Yeah.
A lot of people turned on Jesse, but
Mm-hmm.
not too many people turned on Walt. And
Yeah.
I was shocked by that. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
you're still in this man's corner, and that's okay. I'm not knocking anybody, but it's like, oh, Jesse's a snitch. Forget him. But
Yeah.
I just don't know. I was in
It's
I was kind of in everybody's corner. I wanted everybody to kind of win here. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I felt the same way, and it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting how a lot of people demonize Jesse because of the way that he was subverting Walt, and everybody kind of gets into like, Heisenberg forever. Like I did a Breaking Bad vlog earlier on where I was talking about just how much of a despicable human being Walter is. And I got a lot of negative feedback. People were like, Heisenberg's my ride or die, and just kind of like, it's like I get that, but it's interesting that a lot of people were just like, "Go Walt," and
Yeah.
it's funny because I've had such a place for Jesse this
Hmm.
entire time, and similarly to kind of what I felt for Deborah in Dexter, and I think that and a lot of people got pissed at Deborah too. Like I don't know if you picked up on that, but a lot of people are like, I'm so tired of Deborah whining about what Dexter does. Like, why can't she just be happy for him? And in the end, she actually does just relent and just wants him to be happy, because they kind of find their way back to each other and stuff. But it was like I didn't get that either. It's like, what is she doing wrong? And Jesse and Deborah have paralleled each other in a lot of ways, in terms of the traumas that they have sustained for, well, I don't know. It's hard to describe how Jesse feels about Walter. I don't know if you could say that he loves him in a sense. I don't know if, there is a connection. There is this connection for sure. Um, but yeah, and I think that part of why I reacted so differently to the finales is because of the fates of those characters. Um,
Yes.
with Jesse getting justice and Deborah getting the short end of the stick and getting turned into a vegetable. Like, I think that's what sucked the most is that she wasn't even conscious by the end.
I
And
would
just
say she wasn't even relevant by the end, but
and
that's
she just yeah, and yeah, I could go on about that, but like it's interesting because the fates of their characters are so just polarized. Like we see Deborah, she's just gone. Um, she's a shadow of her former self, and there's nothing she can do about that, And then whereas Jesse, like he's roared into life, and who knows what's gonna freaking happen to him, but he is there and he is going, and and I think that that's part of what made the finale so different for me was seeing what those characters, the ones that we want to get justice the most, seeing how they're treated in the story. And I can see why the writers did what they did on both sides of the spectrum. I wish that Deborah could have lived, but I kind of see why they brought it to that. But it's still me. I was just so relieved for what happened with Jesse and that slightest bit of resolve that he got with Walt. Just that one look was all they really needed to do to kind of close the books on a truly legendary bromance, if you will.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, yeah. So that's what I got to say about that. I guess is that kind of is what made Dexter hurt bad and Breaking Bad hurt good
Getting back to
for
the
me.
topic of Deborah and the
Yes.
Jesse parallels, you strike an
Uh
interesting
huh.
chord there, because in Breaking Bad, Jesse is in more than a few ways responsible for the hardships that he's endured. Um,
Right.
so let's not sugarcoat Jesse in any way, and that's something I've never done. I've never
Sure.
um angelicized Jesse in any way. I understand that Jesse is a deplorable human being, but numerous times he's tried to walk away from this, and
Uh huh.
for whatever reason, he just couldn't get out, or Walt wouldn't let him go, or circumstances kind of dragged him back in. And Jesse has tried to maintain, in a similar way that Walt has done, some kind of border, some kind of line that will not be crossed. With Jesse, it's
Yeah.
kids.
Uh
And
huh.
multiple times in the series, kids have been victims, and Jesse has been like, "This, I will not stand for this." The Drew
Mhm.
Sharp thing is immediately what had Jesse check out. Like, "Look, Walt, I'm done." And Walt's like, "Okay, fine, take your ball and go home." He kind of has a hissy fit about Jesse leaving after
Mhm.
the Drew Sharp thing. So there's
Yeah.
that. But with Deborah,
Uh
Deborah
huh.
was never responsible for any of her actions up until season 7. And I
Yeah.
say that because, okay, in the first season, Deborah falls in love with Brian Moser. Guy's a
Right.
serial killer. She doesn't know that. She's forgiven. You
Yeah.
know,
Mhm.
Season 2, she falls in love with Frank Lundy. They can't really have a relationship because, he has to go chase bad guys because he's a badass. Um,
Yep.
so there's that. And let's not forget that there was some kind of weird father issues going on between her and Frank Lundy, because he is old enough to
Yes.
be her dad. So
Uh
that
huh.
kind of reflects Deborah's admiration of Harry Morgan in a sense. Season
Yeah.
3, Deborah was kind of like, okay, I'm off men. Then she meets Anton. She's smoking a little bit of weed. She's doing a little bit of this, and
Yeah.
Anton's a CI. So technically he's kind of a criminal. So there's
Yeah.
that. Season 4, Frank Lundy comes back. He gets shot. She takes up the mantle to find the Trinity Killer.
Yeah.
Everything that Deb has gone through has, in my mind, was building her up to this point of accepting Dexter.
Yeah.
None more important than in season 5, when she has Dexter and Lumen cornered, and she's like,
Mhm.
"The cops are going to be here. You guys better go."
Yeah.
And she basically tells them, "I understand, you know, all of this, so I'm going to let you go, but
Yeah.
I don't want to find you," kind of
Mhm.
deal, because she knows that's her job. I have to get these people, but you guys have been through so much, I've been through so much. There's this mutual understanding between the two of them.
Yeah.
you know in Jesse's case, he's been involved in so much and
Right.
had to let go of so much. In that scene with where Gus forces him to shake hands with the two guys who had the kid dealing, the kid who shot Combo, uh
Yeah.
and Andrea's brother.
Mhm.
And Jesse has to sit there and realize that these are the guys who are responsible for it. They have a kid doing this, which Jesse has never been cool with, but he
Yeah.
has to accept this in order to continue doing business. And he can't do that. And there's this constant moral confliction with the whole thing that
Yeah.
really plays out in the series. However, in Dexter, the moral conflict with Deborah coming is killing Hannah. That's when she says she completely lost it.
Yeah.
And I did not exactly buy that,
Mhm.
because from the realization she had in season 5, that should have been this moment where it's like, wait, that was you? All of
Yeah,
this was done because of you. So in a sense, she can have that sense where I let you go because I understood, the issues that you were dealing with.
yeah,
But at the same time, it's like I got to do my job. So how can I make this work? And that was never in the series. That was never that that conflict of dealing with it and trying to make it work. It was always like, "Oh, Dexter, you're a monster," and they kind of had that with the Spelter guy, where
yeah.
Dexter showed her the ashes, and she's like, "It makes me feel good that he's gone," and I'm
Uh-huh.
like, "Great, we can finally get to this place where Deborah's willing to accept that yes, Dexter is a monster, yes, Dexter is a serial killer, but at the same time, this can be used for some good. This can be used for something." And I
Yeah,
thought they could have struck this mutual deal where it's like, okay, look, Dex, if I can't catch him, then you get him.
yeah,
And I'll cover your ass because now I know, I can hide evidence for you. I can do this. And that would have went great. But they
mhm,
didn't go that route.
right,
And now we were left with season 7 and season 8, which just kind of felt like, yes, Dexter's a serial killer, but not enough time was devoted to their relationship to really deal with that in any real dramatic sense.
right. And you know what's interesting about that is that it almost could have gone that direction if not for Hannah McKay.
Exactly.
If you remember, yeah, because I'm sure you remember when, she calls Dexter. I think it was in the episode Chemistry last season where she calls him and she's like, do what you do. And he's, in bed
Yes.
with the person that she wants him to do the deed with. And, um,
Yes.
and so it's like from that moment, if he, it all could have gone very differently if not for Hannah McKay. Uh,
Exactly.
I mean, granted, I could still see Deborah having a breakdown about taking out LaGuerta because, I kind of saw that whole situation as being related to even some mother issues on Deborah's part. I mean, she's got some daddy issues out the wazoo, but, she also never really had a mother figure either,
Of
if
course.
you think about it. And so I think that LaGuerta was the closest thing that she had to a mother and a mentor, bitch though she was.
Of
Though
course.
she was. I mean, I think that implicit in her reaction to that was the realization that she killed off something, she never got to have.
Hmm.
For a brother might not have been in the set, well, because in the 6th season she was dealing with all the feelings and blah blah blah. There's just a lot. So all that to say, I could see her still having a similar reaction to,
Yeah.
what if it like LaGuerta's death had still, been, still keeping LaGuerta's death, but it's like, yeah, it could have been so much different, and they could have the last 2 seasons just go much different. In fact, in all
So
right,
finish your thought.
yeah. So all that to say, it kind of comes back to the Hannah thing. Just I don't know. I don't know. Like what would have happened
Yeah.
if he had actually, taken her out? Like what would that have done for Dexter? Would that have embittered him against Deborah, or would it have sealed them together? And then the central drama of the next season could have been something else. I don't know.
Yes. And I didn't want to make anything Hannah centric. I didn't want this to be this long tirade on Hannah. I really didn't. But it
Yeah,
almost as if the writers were begging us to do it because she became such a central focus of
right.
of the final season. It wasn't like Dexter is going to get caught for being a serial killer. It was Dexter's going to get caught for harboring a fugitive. And
Yeah, and that's what made the tension feel so bizarre because, all like it's almost as if season 2 felt more like the end game than season 8
yes,
did.
yes. And season 2 had so much more character development, so much more growth for Dexter, especially after killing his brother in the first season, with the introduction of Frank Lundy, and Frank Lundy even explaining, like, look, the Bay Harbor Butcher has some kind of code here. Like, you don't kill this many people without thinking you're doing something good. And
Yeah,
I really wanted all of those themes to kind of play a role in the final season of Dexter discovering his humanity. Like, the
yeah.
landscape has changed so much for Dexter. He has a dead wife. He has a child now. And, he
Hmm.
has stepchildren. He has Astor and Cody. And I really wanted these things to kind of build up. If anybody watched my dexterity videos, and you already know what I'm getting at here, but I wanted the final season to be this conflicting moment where it's like, okay, I can either continue to be a serial killer and neglect Harrison, neglect Deborah, neglect, my humanity. I can do that. I can either do this, or I can get away from being a serial killer and, focus on Harrison, focus on Deborah, focus on Astor and Cody, my job, all of these other things.
Right.
These things that in season 2, he said the mask was slipping and I'm starting to care and it's scaring the hell out of me.
Yeah.
And it's like, all of those people, those important people, Harrison, Astor, Cody, Deborah, Batista, all of these people, all of them were forsaken for Hannah.
And that's what made her character so unlikable for me was the fact that all those essential characters were pushed away. For example, in the premiere, I thought there was going to be an ongoing tension between Dexter and Batista that would lead to the end game because of the way that Dexter reacted when Batista tried to give him, the old, like, what was it, that
Yeah.
shot of LaGuardia's, and he's just like, can't we all just move on? And the way that Batista reacted was so injured that I was almost certain that he wouldn't be able to let go of that. I think it bugged the hell out of him that one of his best friends at work is being so incredibly insensitive, I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't surprise any of us.
Yeah.
But you would think, and yet him being in the role of lieutenant, he barely did diddly squat. He was just there until the very last episode where he and Quinn, exchanged this look as they watched the tape in, the cell where Dexter and Saxon counter and, well, clear self-defense quote on. It's just
Yeah.
like that. I was hoping that would happen and earlier on, and in such a way as to build towards, Dexter. You know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
It's like that. I feel that if Hannah hadn't, the Argentina thing hadn't been, so glorified, it would have been more about Miami Metro. It would have been more about Dexter's legacy with his family as well.
Yes. And if they wanted to keep the brain surgeon there as sort of this negative Dexter, if you will, because again, we're dealing with the mother of the code and then the son of the mother of the code. So it's like they're
Yeah,
kind of spiritual brothers in a sense. But I
right.
mean, that's only, concept wise, because series wise it didn't really play out that way. It was poorly
Yeah,
done. But I wish the brain surgeon would have been just a hell of a lot more just disgusting. And what I mean by that is
yeah,
just like, for the final season, we needed a villain so chaotic, so just irrevocably evil and
yeah,
tormented that Dexter would have to, like, get out of retirement. That even Deborah would, like, you got to get this guy, or
yeah.
stuff is gonna happen. And it would drive Dexter to choose, like, is this what I'm gonna become? You know?
Huh?
kind of that same revelation he had with Trinity and the Tooth Fairy in season
Yeah.
6. It's like, is this my fate? Am I going to become this guy? You
Yeah.
know,
Right.
where and we could have kept that where it was Vogel's son, who Vogel
Yeah.
feels like, I failed this son. I
Yeah.
failed him, but I succeeded with. And Dexter's like, I got a chance to, have a real life. But, you know,
Yeah.
there's this monster out there that is coming for the mother of the code, that is coming for me because it feels that I took its life. And I really wish they would have done more with that concept too,
Yeah.
where Daniel was kind of jealous of Dexter, like, oh, she chose the wrong son. But again, it all came so late in the game that it fell flat. If they would have
Yeah.
started the series with that, I mean, started the season with that, of just this dark negative Dexter out there, that would have
Yeah.
been so gratifying at the end, to have Dexter kill him and be like, this is the final kill, this is it, I'm done, I'm walking away, I can't do this anymore because I don't want to end up like that.
Yeah.
But they didn't. So much of it was dedicated to Hannah. So much of it was dedicated to superfluousness, with Quinn trying to make Sergeant, and Zach and Masuka's daughter, that all of it was just one big jumbled mess. And I can't imagine anyone in the writers' room felt like they were accomplishing something that was good, because you look at the teasers for the final season, and it's intense. We
Uh-huh.
got blood raining from the sky. There's the sea of blood. Dexter, the final season. And
Yeah.
you look at the little, like, behind the scenes snippets, and everybody's all like, yeah, they don't play it safe. It's really intense. And it was about as intense as a daytime soap. And
Right.
it really hurt to see a show this good
Yeah.
fall so far. I mean, and I hate to be rambling, but
Yeah.
the other seasons had their flaws. Okay, they had their moments where it's like, okay, this is stupid, but whatever. This was still good. This was still great. There's a ton of
Yeah.
them. With especially in season 4 with Dexter popping out of Trinity's car, but whatever. I'll live with that.
Yeah.
I can have that.
Right.
That can stay there. But after a while, it got to the point where it's like the writers felt so free to do whatever they wanted, that now you have Hannah McKay, a known fugitive, waltzing around Miami without even a disguise, without even sunglasses, and that's insulting. And you have this U.S. Marshal who is so horrible at his
Oh my
job that the random
God.
nameless nurse could do a better job than he did. Instead of,
Right.
like, camping outside of Deborah's house with, like, one of those listening devices and binoculars, this guy is just waltzing around in his jeans and his jacket and his $5 haircut, walking around going, oh yeah, so hey, there's this lead on Hannah. And it's like, these people are bad at their jobs, and they're not they're
Yeah.
not being tricked. They're not being outmaneuvered by anyone. It's as simple as Hannah hiding in Deborah's bedroom.
Yeah.
That's that's not that's not clever. This isn't police work. This isn't,
No.
can I take a look around that? This isn't that. And it's like, I don't want to be insulted, and I feel like I am with Hank in Breaking Bad. As much as Hank played the role of this big kind of offensive guy who was going around making remarks about Mexicans and this, that, and the other thing, we understood that Hank was good at his job. We
Yeah.
see him putting together the bits and pieces. We see him, saying Gus is the guy, even when everybody's like, yeah, bring Hank the guy. And Hank is like, no, this is the guy. And he's proven
Yeah.
right. And I kept saying in Breaking Bad, it was damn good to see some legitimate police work being done.
Yeah.
When he
Yep.
goes home and he pulls out the journal, not the journal, but Leaves of Grass, and he compares
Yeah.
the handwriting, and he gets those boxes and boxes of files, and he's going through it, and I'm like, Hank is the man.
He knows
He's
what's up.
doing his job.
Yep.
So, yeah, it was just that juxtaposition where it's like there's treating the audience stupid, and then there's actually having the characters be who they are. And that's what Breaking Bad did. And season 7 of Dexter kind of did that. Because Breaking Bad and the final season of Breaking Bad and season 7 of Dexter kind of did the same things, in a sense, where you think that the final season of Breaking Bad is going to be about Hank discovering that Walt is Heisenberg. No. What happened? First episode of season 5B, they have that confrontation. In the same way in season 7, Deborah, that confrontation. Are you a serial killer? Both happened at the very first episode. It's like these characters are not stupid. They're on their game. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And then after that, in Dexter's case, the bottom just fell out from there. In Breaking Bad's case, it got better. That even after that horrific confession tape, Hank was still dedicated to getting Walt. Still dedicated to getting him. That wasn't going to stop him. And it was like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we're coming up on an hour here. Long talk. But I just want to close with just some speculation, or not speculation, but okay, well, I don't know the word for it, and I'm not going to look it up. But asking EmmightySofia, noted Dexter fan, how would you have gone about ending the final season of Dexter?
Oh, see, that is a marvelous question. I think you can already tell that I would have removed Hannah McKay completely and utterly.
Of course.
But all that aside, I would have liked to at least to have had more of the parallels between the beginning and the end, and for them to have developed that sense of cohesion more. Because it's okay for a story to change, and it's okay for, Dexter to change as he has, realizing his humanness and kind of the fallout from that. It makes sense that things are going to get messy. But the messiness that ensued did not feel intentional. It felt like it just kind of happened. So I would have had more of a connection to Aster and Cody, and more of character and reflected upon, from Dexter being on the other side of the coin. Now, neat monster to messy human, and just sort of, more of a look at the past. I know that's kind of a nebulous idea. That's not really like, I would have done this, this, and this. That's just more of a concept that I would have liked. I would have liked in the finale for for one closed in on, in some sense, like maybe by Batista. There's even the capacity for that to happen with Quinn too. But I would have had like Dexter talk with other characters of the past in his head, like as it's closing, the magnifying glass is over, like Dokes to show up, or Trinity, because Dexter knows that, like, yeah. So basically, I would have had some figures from the past kind of come back, and sort of Dexter to be in conversation with them as everything is coming to the close. And in fact, the original Dexter showrunner, Clyde Phillips.
Yes, I was going to bring that up.
Fantastic ending idea that all of this was being played out in Dexter's head as he's about to get justice served. He's about, I think that's how it was, right? Like he's about to get, his lethal injection or the electric chair, what have you. And that this is all the memory of a man on the other side of things. And he comes around from kind of this coma of reflection. It's as if his life this has all been, flashing before his eyes.
Yes.
And I love that idea, because it would be just the perfect way to, it almost like subverting everything, but not, because we all thought that we were watching this unfold as it was. Whereas,
Yes.
it's already been over the from the start.
Yes.
It's
And
it
yeah.
was already over. And I love that idea, and personally, like, that sums up all of my feelings of, because it puts Dexter inevitably in the spotlight in the end and brings the focus to him. And as opposed to this, like, is he going to kind of get away and go do his thing? It's like, um that to me would have been incredibly, incredibly satisfying. And ever since hearing that, I just can't get that out of my head, like, as far as how I would have wanted things to end, because that's like exactly what I would have wanted,
Yeah, it was
I think.
definitely an intriguing ending.
Yeah.
For more than a few reasons for me, which I'll probably get into later. Not on this podcast, but maybe
Sure.
somewhere in the future. But
Yeah.
that's definitely one of the better ideas for an ending,
Yeah.
especially with the old enemies of his past, kind of
Yeah.
watching him from the glass getting being executed. I would have
Yeah, that's
appreciated that. That would have been a very nice image for to tidy up the show.
yeah.
Having Brian Moser there. And I love that you bring up the concept of him talking to other people, because
Yeah.
this is something that was brought up in season 6, but it was dropped completely. And I would have liked to have seen kind of this Dokes character who shows up, because in season 2, Dexter and Dokes did kind of have this rapport where Dexter was
Yeah.
kind of ready to say, okay, well, I'm going to confess, and Dokes is like, yeah, okay, yeah, because going out like that's a punk move, yeah,
Yeah.
let's confess, we'll work something out. Dokes was ready to do that. So it would have been nice to have more Ghost on Dexter's shoulder, more
Right.
burdens to carry.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, all of this is just the imagination of just two wild and crazy Dexter fans going off on a tangent. And like any television show, we're left with what we're left with, and we just have to live with it. But thankfully, the season is over, the series is over, and that's all there will be. As for Breaking Bad, well, my life is empty right now. I really don't know what I'm going to do on Sunday nights. Um, I don't know, probably hug a
Unless
pillow and cry.
unless you take a liking for a post-apocalyptic wasteland with The Walking Dead, but
Indeed.
it's gonna
Indeed.
be different. It's gonna be different, and there are, of course, Hannibal and Bates Motel. Did you start watching that by any
I
chance?
have not. I have not. It's just one of those shows that's kind of on my list. And
Right. I've got a list as well, so I
yeah,
can.
it kind of started, and I was like, well, no, it's kind of already doing its thing, so I'll have to get to it. Kind of like Game of Thrones.
Sure.
So
Yeah. I'm.
yes,
Yep. I would suggest that, because we could definitely. Um, Bates Motel. I thought I was I was pretty uncertain. It's like they're trying to kind of ride on the coattails of Hitchcock and all that jazz, but they do some very interesting work, and I'm really into it,
I've
actually.
heard.
Yeah, and they actually, Vera Farmiga got nominated for, I think it supporting actress. I mean, she's kind of a freaking lead in the show,
Of
but
course, she would
her,
have to be.
yes, yeah, but she does a stunning Norma Bates, and just the craziness of it all. It's good. So there's more psychopathic nonsense on television to.
Yes, I was just about to say that with
Yeah.
Dexter going out with one literal serial killer leaving our screens. We have the father and the grandfather of serial killers, Norman
Yeah.
Bates and Hannibal Lecter,
And what's
stepping in
yeah,
the prime light. So we're not void of psychopaths. And
nope.
also Fox's The Following is coming back. So there's that.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, we have an abundance of psychopaths to deal with. Not sure what that says about our society, but that's a podcast for another day.
Sure.
Anyway, this has been the Dexter Wrap Up Podcast with Hugo Strange and
And EmmightySofia.
and we will catch you guys when we catch you guys. Until then, stay off the blue stuff, and goodbye.